Oh, hi, I'm the True Wise Gamer, giving off my vast knowledge so you may understand games a bit better. So, Fable. Why are we talking about this game? Well, I actually got the game for cheap, and one of my friends said I should try it out, and I decided to, review it as a way to actually trying to play it because I always had my misgivings about the game, but we'll talk about that in a moment. And honestly, what pushed me to actually fully trying to do it was also the SGB playthrough of the game, which was very funny in my mind because there were just a lot of good comedy from them. I really enjoy it. I'm sad they're gone, but another time.
So what is this game? Well, Fable was developed for the original Xbox exclusively by Lionhead Games. Well, sort of. It was actually done by Blue Box, which was actually a subsidiary of Lionhead Games that got reabsorbed back into Lionhead, though that didn't actually affect the development of this game at all, and was actually very much planned. Which is very rare in games, might I add. Which was headed by Peter Molyneux. If you don't know who that is, he's the liar of video games. Seriously, most times than not, anytime he's interviewed, he is lying out of his ass about something big. And I mean, like, when one of the interviewers say that and ask him, is he a compulsive liar? I think that's enough proof when you know that those people are usually so, I'm not saying sycophants, but there's some sort of maniac crazy in them that prevents them from asking real questions. My point is that alone was one of the reasons why I stayed very far away from this game and this series. That's not to say they weren't ambitious, it's just that a lot of things were very much exaggerated. And what I gleaned from the developers' interviews and what other reviews say, it showed that they really did honestly care about the project and had a good idea in mind.
Whether or not they succeeded, we will find out in this review of Fable: The Anniversary. And the Lost Chapters, but we'll get into that.
So the game begins with us sitting around being a monster, because, let me just tell you, the game does not make the children look good. They all look like monsters to me. Though that's just normal, but they just make them more monstrous. A father wakes us up after forgetting to get our sister a gift. We are then told to do a good deed so that we can get some gold to give her a gift. This is the introduction to the morality system, and really, it is really not worth mentioning, except in certain cases, which I'll talk about later since it's tied a lot to other things that I want to talk about. So, please, wait till then. For the record, I am just doing a good alignment, but even then, I will say the game doesn't punish you for being evil, and does give rewards generously to both sides, which is an actual problem for some systems where they will inherently reward good people. Though that's a more complicated thing, and that should be handled at another time, since that could be its own thing. So after getting enough gold pieces and giving her the gift, the village is soon attacked by bandits, and they hide. Which, weirdly enough, the brother does fine, but the sister just gets captured with everyone else. I don't get how, but whatever. After that, a transition basically explains that, yeah, they were after your family for some reason. I'm a little confused as why mention this now, as it would have worked better as saying it here is a bit random until later because it does nothing right now, and putting that thought in your head just means, oh, we are just special, rather than learning we are special already, but that's a whole other matter. So after most of the bandits left the village, you enter to find your father's corpse as a bandit runs towards you as he is killed soon by May of the Heroes Guild. The Heroes Guild is more of a merc group than anything else. In any case, you are then forced to join it and become a member, and begin training the literal day after your home became destroyed.
Yeah, kid, time's a wasting. You gotta get out there and do stuff. So that implies that it was even fast. It actually takes around about an hour if you're doing everything the game wants you to do in the beginning. Otherwise, it's just there to eat up a good chunk of the game, due to the game's runtime.
After some years of trading, he becomes a full member of the guild, and is let out to do whatever you want. Sort of. I mean, yeah, you can't just do whatever you want for a little bit, but you will need to do the main quest through the quest card. As their name implies, are just how you do quests. Well, some of them. Some of them are just, like, out in the wild, but a good chunk of them will be done through the quest cards. especially the main story. You can only accept them at the guild hall. I don't know why I forgot to mention that, I just needed to mention it. There are multiple types of quests you can accept, but for the most part they're just really most focused on combat. So let's actually get into that now. You got two weapons, a melee and a bow. You could switch between the two and only have one attack with them, except melee, where they get a move called a flourish, which is by and large only when an enemy keeps blocking, and that's it. Which is just used as a guard break if anything. There is also magic, which is called willed here, that can be variative, but I never needed too much of it. Though the time slow spell was really good and broke the game in half, though I could have done so anyway as, well...
And that is because the game is mostly easy for the most part and it's unable to challenge you in any meaningful way. I mean, like, as long as you're paying attention to the combat, at least in some regard, you'll never have a difficult time in the game. In fact, it will become trivial by the end.
Heck, by the beginning of the game, I never needed new gear because I bought the best gear I could get. That is because the game has a minigame that allows you to gamble on stuff if you guess the right card. And well, once I did that, I gained a lot of money, which got me enough to buy any amount of gear I wanted and then some. And sure, there was better gear out there, but I never really needed it, as we'll get into that in a moment. Which then led me to a problem as I started to wonder, why was I even bothering playing the game much else or doing side quests when there wasn't really much they could add? Heck, even with doing side stuff, it didn't take me long to beat the game. The base game, excluding the lost chapters, took me like 6 hours, and that was with me doing side stuff. I swear, this game is short, which is not usually a problem for me because some games don't really know when to actually stop and just move on. This game ironically felt long for me because the combat stopped being engaging about halfway through. That is because the combat really never evolves or require much complex moves. Like, that explanation at the beginning of the game, where I just said, here's everything, that was everything! There's literally not much else to talk about. And ironically, a lot of people say this combat's good? Like, what? It is just button mashing, which I don't have usually a problem of, but the problem was that it just doesn't mean anything to me. One of the things that kept floating around while I was researching this game was this idea that the game was for a power trip, and that's really it. For the record, that's a fine idea. As a Muso fan, that's what I love about those games, feeling powerful against multiple foes. And the problem is, the game is too busted to make that feeling mean anything. Seriously, there are so many ways to break this game in half that it's up to mostly you to not break it. Which, I don't know, I'm always against that in principle because it just means the devs weren't able to balance the game properly. Which, you know, means it was badly designed. Though I won't lie, that's also because they were actually rushed and under a lot of crunch. Which I didn't know until watching ColorShed's review of the game. Which, while I don't agree with his review, it was still informative and made something make more sense to me, but more on that later. I still don't see that as an excuse for what we got. Though to be nice to the game, the leveling system isn't bad, it's actually quite good. Essentially, it's the use it to become better system. See, as you fight opponents and do quests, you gain generic XP that allows you to become stronger. However, in combat, let's just say you use magic. You will gain magic XP that is determined by the combat multiplier, which, don't worry about that. Weirdly enough, you can only level up in the guild, though you can teleport there quickly, so no harm, no foul. I just think that players should just be able to do it whenever they want, at the point they can. You have 4 XP for all abilities and just generic. You will either use them to gain stats or an ability, though the only abilities you can get are just magic, so yeah. And depending on the particular group of abilities you are going for, you will use that particular XP, then generic, which is a good way to make players not locked into one play style, though that won't ever be a problem because it's nearly impossible because, well, it's easy to just adapt to all of them. Heck, you can gain an item that gives XP, and with the multiplier, you can gain a lot of XP whenever you want. which just made quests become this thing you can do but never needed to do, and are never interesting enough to carry it along the way. The game just begins to feel like an MMO that just everyone forgot because it was nothing really important or memorable. I honestly had more fun with the entire base FF14 Manderville questline than this entire game. I mean, seriously, go watch it, only for the Manderville quest, because it is literally one of the best quests I have ever seen in my life, bar none. It is that good.
So, okay, I'm gonna be a little honest that I have been a little mean to the game, though there is some actual good stuff about the game that one could argue just because of the remake, but it's still there. That being how it looks.
Now granted, it's not my cup of tea. Oh my god, I just noticed that. Anyway, the game has an aesthetic that is uniquely... It tries to have an old British medieval time look to it, which works in most regard. I mean, if you saw this art style, you could just say, yeah, that's totally Fable. Which in my mind allows it to be, distinct and allows for personality. It also has a good palette, which a lot of games after this tried to kill with fire because, I don't know, they hate fun? Well, I mean more Western games, but you get the idea. There's also the music, which I had to re-listen to due to the game having a weird audio mixing and, well, I don't really mention this, my own weird upbringing. I know this is weird, but the best way to put it to someone is that I never listened to game audio much, due to not being alone a lot of time when I was younger playing games, so I had to grow up without paying attention to the music. So it's a lot harder for me to actually care about music unless it's super good. It works well enough for the vibe it's going for, which makes it good in my mind. Though it does sound a bit monotone at times, it feels like they're using a lot of the same instruments way too much in the same way. I know it sounds weird, but that's the best way I could put it to someone. It's still fine, it's just, there. I'll also say that the level design is short enough due to the game's layout that makes traveling actually fast and nice. Since some games makes traveling really annoying in games while making the walk path very slow and really too long for anyone to care about.
And with that out of the way, let's actually talk about the plot and my real big issue with it. It doesn't really matter. At all.
The plot is overall short and simple, which is usually never a problem for me, as sometimes a game can go on way longer than it ever needs to and makes a game unbearable, as it prolongs something we want done. My problem becomes the game is unable to do anything with the things it has. The characters are simplistic and flat. I legit could not care about anything, even though I'm an emotional lightning rod. It means I can just be able to be more swayed to what the story wants me to feel, way more easily than most people ever will be. I think it's actually helpful for me to have that because it allows me to more be able to feel out what the game wants me to do. However, the game just doesn't do anything to make me care, and it's not like the plot cared about them to begin with. To give an example, Whisper, who I didn't even mention in the beginning because she doesn't matter at all, and disappears after the arena where we meet Jack of Blades, the main villain of the game. Yeah, he is introduced about halfway through the game with no build-up or even an explanation of who the heck he is. He reveals to us our mother was a former hero and has some special blood which can reveal an ancient sword, who we learn from our sister. Oh, she's alive and was just hanging out with some bandits. It's nothing important, as she will never factor into the plot at all, other than to give you a power-up. That's it. So why does Jack want the blade to begin with? He is shown to be powerful, so why does he even want or even need it? Apparently, in the game, I'm not entirely sure, it was actually Jack's weapon long ago, until William Blake took the sword and defeated him. And the court, some allies of him, it's weird, they don't matter, at all. In any case, they were defeated. William then sealed the sword so no one else could claim it except himself or someone of his bloodline, which we are, and is in fact still alive as Scythe, revealed by one of the designers of Fable. Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. This ancient villain reclaiming his lost weapon so he may fully reconquer the world. Wished any of that was revealed. I didn't know anything about this until Color Shift's review of the game. Seriously, the game has interesting ideas, it just doesn't want to do anything with them. Like, to give an example, Lady Grey. You meet her and she seems important because the game stops just before meeting Jack of Blades to introduce her. And she doesn't matter, like at all. She's not there to do anything else other than to be some sort of side quest, which I totally ignored for a good chunk. And only by accident did I actually complete her quest where I arrested her for killing her sister and became mayor, which really didn't matter at all.
Because like I stated at the beginning, everything you do doesn't matter. Any choices you make throughout the game doesn't really matter. This is where I also need to talk about the morality system and why it fundamentally fails.
See, morality systems in games have a major problem of having really any morality in them. By that I mean, it has a hard time of making any of it matter. Like, I can name so many games out there that have a morality system that doesn't do anything with it. That's not to say that it can't work, they just need to mean something. Like Infamous, where it influences your gameplay style with the type of style of gameplay you're going for, which is good. There's also Mass Effect, which is not actually a morality system, but it's complicated but another time. It just needs to mean something and allow for multiple purposes other than to just be a douchebag or a goody-goody two-shoes.
I actually like to give you an example of how fundamentally bad this system is. To give you how much it doesn't understand evil, you know you can get married in the game. Which is like a mechanic that I only did in the end game just to show off what's wrong with it. But because it doesn't really matter, because let's just say, for example, you kill her. You gain like 14 to 16 points of evil. Okay? Let's just say, for example, you divorce her. Tell me, how many evil points do you think you get? I mean, like, there shouldn't be any evil points to begin with because it's a neutral act in and of itself because it is made by two consenting adults deciding on what they do unless you did something to cause it, but that's a whole other matter. I'm getting off topic. But guess how much evil points you gain if you get divorced? 600. $600. That is more than killing 20 people. Or at least some amount of people that is greater. And just what? And I hope that makes you understand that this is what's wrong with the fundamental system.
If they are like that, they usually have minimal effect since it won't matter. In fact, the only time morality comes in is with the endings. And let's actually get into that now. So you find your mother after spending a year in prison, which doesn't matter at all. You try to stop Jack from getting the key, which Mace helps him with, which it's confusing as some of the notes earlier on says he was actually trying to stop him, but he changed his mind, but it doesn't really matter. After easily killing Mace and finding Jack and getting the blade back by sacrificing your mother, it's like, oh no, he's so powerful now, and we easily kill him. Yeah, the game is that much of a broken mess that the final boss is actually very much a farce. We then get the choice to throw it into the void or kill your sister for ultimate power. Yeah, and that is the only choice that matters. Sort of. There is also the Lost Chapters, which is just an expansion of the original game. That's okay, it just adds more stuff, but that's it. I have not much to say about it. It's just there for more of the same, that I just don't care about it. It is just there to say, Jack's not truly dead until we either kill him or become him. That is pretty much it. And the game will continue even if you decide to kill everyone. Doesn't really matter.
And that's this game in a nutshell. The game had real potential. There was some good quality. But it just mostly focused on the wrong things and the rest of it is just not good enough to hold it. The gameplay is solid for the most part, but the gameplay just gets boring because it can't do much else after a while, and it doesn't pick up the slack anywhere else. The story is a slog that has no real reason or any moment for me to care about anything, and it's just weird. The only good things I could say about the game is that it looks nice and has some decent music. But that doesn't save it from being a boring mess. However, I will say this though. It is way more fun than Mind Jack. You know why? This is next time. I'm too lazy and don't care enough about this game. God damn it. Oh yeah, since we're at the end, we got Splatterhouse. So, hack and slash MB. We're actually gonna do it someday. Well, we're gonna do it in Halloween because, you know, keep it in line with the idea of the game. You know, keep it like that. I would like to say, thank you for watching. Comment, see what I did wrong. Maybe did I get a fundamental idea in my head wrong, or just say I'm terrible. Maybe that's it. And heck, if you feel like I'm deranged enough, maybe you should subscribe. See y'all next time.